Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 7th episode of the Media Magpie Podcast. I always like to do a sort of different little intro just when I'm, introducing the podcast. So I thought I would switch it up there. Anyway, welcome to the episode. Today, we're going to be talking about a very special topic, which is sort of coming back to a topic I talked about in the first episode. But we're rewinding. We're going back in time to the seasons. We're not doing any of the new stuff. We're doing some of the older stuff, the classic stuff. Not classic Who, but new Who. But anyway, we are going to be talking about Doctor Who Season 3, Episode 10, and the episode is called Blink. Now, Blink is probably one of my favorite episodes, if not my favorite episode. I really, really liked this episode. And this episode is probably the reason why, as a kid, not so much anymore, but as a kid, I was scared to death of statues. I was just scared to death. I think, to be honest, I wouldn't put it past if every kid was scared to death after statues after this episode, honestly. This episode made us all question, shit, are statues just move when we don't look? When we blink? Hence the name of the episode, Blink. Haha, funny. But anyway, before we get into the episode, I've been teasing to my followers on Instagram that I actually had a sponsor for today's episode. Now, I just want to get it straight out of the way so, don't have to worry about it spoiling the episode. That it's straight off, we just get it straight off the bat, and that people can skip this if they want. But I don't skip it. I wouldn't recommend it. Anyway. So, the sponsor for today's episode of the podcast is, drumroll, me! For people on YouTube, for people on Spotify, I just showed my new Media Magpie shirt. So yes, it's me. It's not that exciting. I didn't actually get a sponsor. But, it's still pretty cool. I am my own sponsor, because I can sponsor myself. Sadly, I won't get paid to sponsor myself. Sucks. But I will get money if you pay for the merch. So, I will put a link in my show notes to the link tree for the Media Magpie shop. But I also put a link in the YouTube video, and then there'll be links on my Instagram and everything. I'll make a post about it. But basically, I have made a Redbubble shop where you can buy merch. You can buy a shirt like this, which I'm showing on the YouTube video. Sorry, Spotify. You can buy this shirt. You can just buy the logo as a shirt. You can buy stickers of this, and then there's a couple other little designs here and there. But yeah, so you don't have to buy merch. Again, you don't have to buy it. It's just there. And I don't expect people to buy it, but, it's just something that, people can buy if they want to show their love and support for my show. And I thought, why the hell not? It'd be cool. So go check it out. Have a look at the designs. If you want to get one, you can. All the money will go to supporting me, and maybe I'll even make sure to use that money to, get new stuff for the podcast. Who knows? But yeah, again, not forcing anyone to buy any of it. Not telling anyone you have to go buy it. Go buy it now. But I do appreciate if you give it a look and maybe consider it. So again, the links will be in the description of the YouTube video. For the people listening on Spotify, go on my Instagram. You'll find it there. Instagram is Media Magpie. All that stuff, and there'll be links in my link tree as well, which is on Instagram. So if you basically want to find my links, just go to my Instagram, pretty much, and follow that if you can, please. Anyway, now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about the episode that is Doctor Who Blink. So, well, basically, Blink actually first aired on the 9th of June 2007. 2007. So I was actually about 6 at the time this episode aired. So I was a youngling. I was a baby. But basically, this episode is directed by Hedy MacDonald, she was actually, funny enough, I think this was one of the first episodes directed by a female, which is very cool. And it was written by some fans who know Doctor Who very well, they know this guy. It was written by Steven Moffat, which, I love some of Steven Moffat's work. It's great. And for him to make this Doctor Who monster, amazing. What the hell, man? He made an amazing Doctor Who monster. Honestly, the Weeping Angels are probably one of my favourite monsters ever. Like, honestly, if not my favourite, and the scariest. Because the Daleks and the Cybermen, yeah, Cybermen were kind of scary. Daleks, not really. Like, kind of, but like, still, Weeping Angels are like the top ones for me. That's what they're called. That's what the statue's called. They're the Weeping Angels. And the funny thing about this story is that it was actually based on Moffat's short story, What I Did on My Christmas Holidays by Sally Sparrow, which, again, if you've watched this episode, which I highly recommend you watch this episode before I talk into it, it is, again, Season 3, Episode 7, Season 3, Episode 10, and it's called Blink. So before because I'm going to deep dive into this, before I get into this, if you want to watch this episode, I recommend stop this video, go off, watch it now. But I warned you, so just letting you know. But yeah, so it's based on a short story of What I Did on My Christmas Holidays by Sally Sparrow. Can't believe I butchered that twice. Anyway, which is really cool. So, and funnily enough, Steven Moffat wanted to do the Weeping Angels in an earlier episode of Doctor Who, which I'll talk about which ones that he wanted to do that on. I'll get to that later. But yeah, so obviously this is, well, not obviously, but the episode that Blink comes from, which Doctor is in it? Well, I'll tell you now. It is probably one of a lot of people's favourites, if not the favourite for everyone. It is David Tennant, the 10th Doctor. So this is the 10th Doctor's story. And who is the companion, you may ask? Again, if you watch it, you would know. But if not, the companion is Martha Jones. Which, Martha Jones probably wasn't one of my favourite companions. I liked her. I liked her a lot. She was a good companion. I'd probably say one of my favourite up there companions was definitely Rose. Everyone loves Rose. But even Amy and Rory. Like, not just Amy by herself, Amy and Rory. I felt like they were sort of a combo. You can't really have one without the other. I mean, later on when Rory gets, kind of dies. Spoiler alert. So it's just Amy and the Doctor. And it works. I did like it, but I liked Amy and Rory. I felt like just having the both of them there was great. And I loved Amy and Rory's storyline. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked. We're not talking about Amy and Rory. We're not talking about Matt Smith. We're talking about David Tennant and Martha Jones. But I was just saying my favourite companions. Anyway, I didn't mind Martha Jones. She was good. She was alright. She wasn't my favourite, though. But still good, though. Anyway, so, and then it's got Sally Sparrow. So she's actually, and funnily enough, we actually don't get much of David Tennant and Martha Jones. Or Freeman. Freema, who plays Martha Jones, the actress. We don't actually get much of the Doctor and the companion because they get stuck. And this episode sort of goes on to a different character and focuses on Sally. And Sally has to sort of help the Doctor and Martha get unstuck from where they're stuck from. Because the Doctor is trapped in 1969 and communicates with Sally Sparrow. So, which is interesting. So, but yeah. And obviously the big threat of this episode, which is a threat to not only everyone in this episode, but also the TARDIS, because if they get a hold of the TARDIS, then it's done. Then they could just switch off the sun, as the Doctor says, is the Weeping Angels. Now, the thing about the Weeping Angels is the way that, and I love that when David explains it, he says that the Weeping Angels are the one monsters that they kill you nicely. They just send you back in time. That is how the Doctor and Martha get sent back in time, because Weeping Angel touches them. But it's the one monster that kills you nicely. It just sends you back in time and lets you live your life in the past. Because how the Weeping Angels work is it feeds off potential energy. And what I mean by potential energy is that once it sends you back into the past, it feeds off the energy, it feeds off the days you would have had in your present, and feeds off that potential energy of the future that you would have had and the days that you've lost. So that's how it rolls. So it doesn't kill you. It doesn't, want to hurt you or anything. It just sends you back in the past and says, yeah, that's it. All right, done. Live your life. Cool. You're good. But then again, it feeds off that potential energy. It's an interesting concept for a Doctor Who monster. And I really, really liked it. I think Steven Moffat really did. It was an interesting concept that Steven Moffat created. And honestly, again, to this day, probably one of my favourite Doctor Who monsters ever. To be honest. If not, well, yeah, my favourite I'm going to say it, my favourite Doctor Who monster. But basically, the Doctor had to find a way to communicate with Sally through the episode. And you find out why the Doctor chooses Sally in the first place to communicate later on the episode. You know, which is where the line comes from, as the Doctor says, it's a bit of a, you know, timey-wimey sort of thing. Which I love that from David Tennant. You know, yeah, timey-wimey, you know, sort of thingy. But basically, in the episode, as I said, David Tennant is trapped in 1969 and has to communicate with a young Sally Sparrow to prevent the statue-like Weeping Angels from taking control of the TARDIS. So Sparrow and her new now friend, or her best friend's brother, Larry Nightingale, must unravel a set of cryptic clues sent through time, left in DVD Easter eggs. So that's how the Doctor communicates with Sally Sparrow. It's through DVD Easter eggs, which you find out later on that when Sally was trying to get help when she goes to the police, the guy, whatever his name was, his last name was Shipton, but I can't remember his name. But basically, when he got sent back in time by Weeping Angels, he set up the DVD Easter eggs for Sally. But yeah, no, it's a very interesting episode to have, you know, both the Doctor and Martha barely be in it. Like, they barely had any screen time. Which also allowed, when they didn't have much screen time, allowed them to make another episode simultaneously, record something else, which was kind of good. So they were allowed to film another episode while this episode was happening, which was interesting. Saved a bit of time. They got time to do another episode, which is cool. But when people watch Blink, and I've never heard this term, but this is what I read up, that there's sort of a term when it comes to this, when episodes like this, and it's called a Doctor Lite episode, which basically means, you know, the Doctor's barely in it, so it's a Doctor Lite episode. So you see little bits of the Doctor. But that's what this episode's kind of referred to as, a Doctor Lite episode, which is interesting. I never heard of that, but it's cool. And in regards to the Weeping Angels, to actually create the angels, they had two actors who wore makeup and prosthetics and looked like that. And I believe in one of the shots, you can actually see the eyes of the actor from the Weeping Angels, which I didn't. I read up on it, and I was like, really? You could? And I'm like, I'm gonna have to go back. Might even after this episode, have to go back and look out for that, because I didn't see it. I haven't seen it. I've watched this episode a couple times, so we'll admit, maybe a lot more than most Doctor Who episodes. But I never noticed that. I must be blind. Anyway, I'll go check it out and look for it. But basically, it's an interesting episode. It's an interesting episode. And the reason why Moffat decided for this monster is because he got inspiration from, like, graveyard statues, but he also got inspiration from the games, like the children's game statues, where you would, you know, basically I believe that's what it is, the game statues. I can't remember. I forgot how you play statues. I was thinking of, I think that's red light, green light kind of. Statues is, yeah, red light, green lights. I think that's what statues is. It's a similar terming, but it's different. But anyway, so that, it was interesting, you know? And he was kind of apparently scared of statues, I think. And that's why it sort of gave him the creeps. So he decided to make a monster out of it, which is interesting. And I really like it. But as I said earlier, Steven Moffat wanted to introduce the Weeping Angels. He actually wanted to introduce the Weeping Angels in Silence of the Library and also in Forest of the Dead, which was two really good episodes. Again, I really liked Silence of the Library. That was actually a good episode. It would have been interesting to include it, like the Weeping Angels in that. I don't know if it would have worked. I really like the Silence of the Library the way it is, but that's where they would have been introduced. Who knows? Could have worked, could have not. But it was an interesting episode. But then, obviously, Moffat decided to use them in Blink after withdrawing them from that. Which, Silence of the Library and Forest of the Dead, they were both a two-parter. I think they were part of the same thing. Yeah. But yeah, he decided to use them in Blink and withdraw them from that. and that be its own separate thing, which again, I think is perfect. Honestly, Blink was probably, honestly, the best way to introduce the Weeping Angels. It was a great introduction for a new Doctor Who monster, which I think some would say is like one of, not just me, but some of all other, Doctor Who fans would say that this is an up there Doctor Who monster for them. And when I say that, I mean it, because this episode was viewed by 6.62 million in the UK. Like, that's insane. That's just in the UK alone. Around the world, don't actually have the stuff for that on my notes, but I'm sure it's a lot. Like, a lot. But a lot of people loved this episode. And not only that, the Blink episode actually received an award for Best Story in the Doctor Who magazine in 2007. So it's good that it received the best story in the time that it was made in the Doctor Who magazine. Like, not only did I love it, it was loved during the time that it was made. So it's an up there episode. A lot of people loved it. And I will say, going to the episode, my favorite bit of the episode was probably when, oh God, I don't know what to say my favorite. I love the whole episode. It's hard to pick a favorite bit, but I want to think of, damn, I should have thought about it before I said it. Oh, I hate it. I love the whole episode, honestly. It's hard to pick a favorite bit. I probably loved the bit where he's like, yeah, when David Tennant goes, so everyone thinks that time is a strict progression between cause and effect. But actually, from a non-linear standpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff. I think everyone loves that bit, and that's probably one of, if not one of my favorite quotable lines from that from the scene, and I loved it. It was great. Like, it was actually really good. But again, not only did it win Best Story in 2007, in Doctor Who's magazine in 2009, for which they had a poll. They ran a poll for the greatest Doctor Who story ever, and it actually came in second place after Pete Davison's final story, which is very good. But yeah, so it's still, after 2009, still came seventh place and still up there. And also Pete Davison's one came first in 2009, which again, I need to watch some more Classic Who. Like, I haven't watched a lot of it. I tried to start it from the start and watch through, what was his name? Oh, I forgot the first Doctor's name. It's going to come to me. My brain's thinking of something else, but that's not it. So I'm not going to say it. But William Hart, was it William Hartnell? Will Hartnell? Or, no, I don't know. My brain will think of it as soon as I stop recording this episode. And yeah, that will just be it. And I'll say, I wish I said it. But yeah, and then as well, there was another poll in 2007, which was conducted by BBC, which took the votes of 2,000 readers of the magazine, and the Weeping Angel was voted the most scariest monster of 2007, with 55% of the voters of the vote. 55% of the vote. The Martian and the Daleks took second and third place with 15% and 4% of the vote. But yeah, I can't lie. That's fair enough. Like, the Weeping Angels are probably, definitely the scariest. I forget about the Master. The Master is actually, I love the Master. He was great. And he's a really, like, classic early on Doctor Who villain. Like, the Master was in Classic Who. So were the Daleks too. And I'm not sure about the Cybermen if they were. Weeping Angels, again, got introduced via New Who because of Steven Moffat and Blink. But it's what a Doctor Who creature the Weeping Angels are. That they're the only creature that they are quantum locked. As David Tennant says, they are quantum locked. That as soon as you've laid eyes on them, they can't move. But then you don't look at them, and then you blink, and statues, you think, oh, statues can't move, but oh yes, they can. So, and they don't cover their eyes because they're crying. They cover their eyes because they don't want to actually see something that will see them. Or, no, not that. Not what I said. Skip what I said. But still, it's a very cool Doctor Who creature, and I love them. They're sick. Anyway, to continue on, in a 2012 poll, over 10,000 respondents conducted by the Radio Times, the Weeping Angel was again voted the best Doctor Who monster. So even in 2012, again, Doctor Who monster, Weeping Angels. And then in Doctor Who magazine 2014, the greatest episode of all time, Blink, again came second. This time behind a 2013 episode, The Day of the Doctor, The Day of the Doctor. What an episode that was. I believe that was with Matt Smith, if I'm correct. The Day of the Doctor. I have to double check on my sources on that one. But again, in 2014, Blink still came as the second best story of all time. Greatest episode of all time. Like, how insane is that? People still loved Blink after the fact of it being from 2007 to 2014. People still loved it. It got second. Like, how good was that? But something I really liked about it, and is how, when the episode starts, when Sally Sparrow, we don't know who she is, we're like, wait, where's the Doctor? Who's this chick? Why are we with this chick and not the Doctor? And then she's going into an abandoned house, and she's ripping the wallpaper, and then we see her name, and it says duck, she ducks, and it says from the Doctor, and it was just interesting. And again, then we met the Weeping Angels for the first time, and we were like, what the hell is that creature? It's an angel? It's a statue? No, wait, surely a statue didn't throw that. Like, statues can't move. But oh, no, yes they can. And, oh, no, it's Doctor Who. Anything could happen, right? But it was so interesting. It was very cool. And I did like how they had to watch a DVD video and it was playing and she was talking to him and all that. But also another line that I liked from Sally was that when she takes her best friend Kathy and Nightingale, and then that takes her to their house. Sally was like, "What?" Or Kathy was like, "Why'd you come here in the first place?" And Sally goes, "'Cause it makes me sad." And then Kathy's like, "Why do you want to be sad?" And then Sally goes, "Sad is happy for deep people." I think that's what she said, for deep people. And I was like, that's interesting. That's an interesting way of thinking it. Sad is happy for deep people. And I mean, look, sometimes I've actually recently in my life come to the realization where sometimes I am sad, but I'm kind of okay with it. And I'm kind of all right with being sad. And that I'm actually fine with being sad. So it's an interesting way of looking at it. And I can see maybe what Sally says, but it's interesting. It was very interesting. But yeah, as I said, and then another thing that I mentioned early on was, again, when in the episode, the Weeping Angels usually have grey eyes just for the episode, but one of the actors' real eyes were visible just before Sally exits the circle, which the circle was when the Weeping Angels tried to, push and shove the TARDIS. And I missed that. I didn't see that. So I'm going to have to look out for that. And look out for that as she's exiting. And so you'll see an actor's real eyes from the Weeping Angels, which is interesting. So I didn't know that was actually there. But honestly, to conclude up this episode, it was just an interesting episode to say the least. Like, to have a Doctor Who monster where it comes to life, like a statue comes to life, and not only it doesn't want to kill you, it just sends you back in time and it feeds off again the potential energy you would have lived, but instead it sends you back in time and you live a different life. And so you live in a different time. It was just an interesting concept. And Steven Moffat, if you're listening, I doubt you would be. Well done, mate. And also, love your work. Keep going. Keep it up. Good stuff, man. But again, I really loved this episode. And I thought that it would be a great episode to talk about on this podcast. And to be honest, I'm probably going to watch it again. Probably after this right now. But I didn't want to say too much. I mean, again, I said a decent amount of it. But if you watch this if you listen to my podcast or watch this episode without watching the episode from Doctor Who, I don't know what you're doing. Why didn't you just go watch it? Silly of you. But still, I Really thoroughly enjoyed it. And again, probably is also one of my favorite episodes as well. Again, before we end it off, I'm going to say the sponsor again. It's me. So if you want to support my show, please go check the link in the description or check my Instagram for the Redbubble shop. And again, I'm not forcing you to get a shirt. You didn't even have to if you don't. Yeah, you don't have to if you don't want to. But I would really appreciate if you consider maybe even just checking it out, having a look. And if you want to support the show, all support is appreciated. But again, your choice, your money, your rules. You do whatever you want. I'm not forcing you, but it's there if you want to do it. So I'm going to end this episode here. Thank you all so much for watching or listening to this podcast. I always love and enjoy doing these episodes. I've only done 7 so far, but I've really enjoyed this podcast so far. And I'm excited to do more episodes to come and hopefully just keep loving it. And I know I will. I'm always going to keep loving it. But thank you guys so much for watching or listening, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!